welcome to an all-new edition of the Golden Standard, the official comic book review series of the Golden Age 1942.
The High Court of Comics and Gaming.
I'm really excited about the book that we're going to review today. Before we get started, I have to give a shout out and a thank you to a good friend of mine, Travis, my boys Travis, for suggesting that I review this. I read this book about a year ago when it came out. Been meaning to review this book for a long time, and just for some reason or another, I just haven't gotten around to it. We get pretty busy around here. Different things on the schedule get moved around. And today we're going to get into Paul Dini's Dark Knight, a true Batman story. The first thing you have to understand about this book is that this is not a Batman story. This is in fact a Paul Dini story, sort of a mini autobiographical look at a very dark and a very personal moment in his life. For those of you who aren't familiar with Paul Dini, he's an award-winning producer and writer, and he's also an artist. He's most well known for some of his work in animation with Warner Brothers Studios in the early 90s, most notably Batman the Animated Series, as well as co-creating Harley Quinn. Now, Dini begins his story by giving us glimpses into his early childhood and growing up with a fascination and love for cartoon and comic book characters. The story eventually flash forwards into his adulthood when he finds himself working at Warner Brothers Studios on Batman the Animated Series. During this time in Dini's life, he really struggled a lot with his own personal demons, just like anybody, just like all of us. We're all flawed. We all have our own personal demons that we wrestle with every day, our own insecurities, our own fears, and Dini pretty much lays this out on the table. One evening after a night out with a lady friend, Dini finds himself walking home, and he's approached by these two guys, and they jump him. I mean, they beat the crap out of him and leave him for dead. So the rest of the story, Dini begins to share with us his road to recovery, not just his physical recovery, but his spiritual recovery, his mental recovery. Because you have to realize, I mean, this was an awful traumatic thing that happened to him, and it crushed him. It destroyed him as a human being, and he really couldn't go on. But one of the things you have to keep in mind is that, Dini is a writer, and he's very, deeply involved with these characters that he writes about, these characters that he's been passionate about ever since he was a kid, most notably Batman. I mean, this happened at a time when he was writing Batman. And so what's interesting in this story is we begin to see where he starts to doubt himself and he doesn't want to go on, but he begins to have these conversations with Batman in his head where he sort of sees Batman. And Dini wants to give up, he don't want to go on, and Batman's basically there and he's like, no. It's like, you need to get up and you need to move forward. And I got to tell you, this book, the first time I read it, it really hit me. The second time I read it, to get ready for this review, I mean, it hit me even harder. It really resonated with me. This book, it moved me. I cannot say enough good things about Paul Dini's Dark Knight. If you're a fan of Batman, even if you're not a fan of Batman, if you're not a fan of comics, I highly suggest this book to you. Everyone needs to check this book out. It's a very powerful tale. Another interesting aspect of it is that not only does he have Batman telling him that he needs to move forward, but he also has the villains. He's got Batman on this side, and he has the villains in his head that are discouraging him, that are pointing out his flaws and pointing out his fears. And so there's sort of this inner struggle within himself that is represented by these characters. But it also kind of drives home this idea of, you take a look at superheroes, what's so cool about them? It's cool to see Superman fly through the air, and it's cool to see Batman swing in and save the day, but what's kept me coming back to these characters, especially coming back to Batman, he's my favorite character of all time, are not these feats of strength, but their morals and their principles and the way that they represent the best in us. I want to talk about the artwork in this. The artwork was done by award-winning artist Eduardo Risso. He just did a fantastic job with this. This story has some moments of just hard reality, and he does a fantastic job of painting those in a way that are just, sort of ugly and kind of hard to look at. But at the same time, we have some really sort of dreamy sequences that are just beautifully drawn and just done really well. And his artwork really fit each moment perfectly. So with Paul Dini's Dark Knight, a true Batman story, you really have just a special book. I really don't know what kind of words to put into it. It's a tale of inspiration, a tale of struggle. It's just a really special story to check out. So that wraps up this edition of the Golden Standard and our review of Paul Dini's Dark Knight, A True Batman Story. We have both the hardback and trade paperback copies available in the store. Like I said, you've got to pick those up. Also want to let you know September 23rd is Batman Day. You're going to want to be here for that. We've got a few surprises, a few things planned, so stay tuned. Hope everyone has a great week, and we'll see you.